My art inspiration for you today is part of a 6-piece series that I made this week to help me overcome a bit of burnout. So I filmed a few of the pieces to completion and I'll be sharing them with you over the next couple of weeks. And I thought for today's share, I would also do a Q&A because I received some amazing questions that fit really well with why I'm making this piece today. But before we start on the questions, let me get this project started for you. So today's project is totally organic, there is no planning, and I am working on all 6 pieces at once, but you'll only see one of them in the video. So I'm working on a piece and then putting it aside to dry whilst working on another piece, and this particular piece was done in 3 stages, and I'll flag up each stage so you know when I left it and came back to it. The whole session to produce the 6 pieces, it came to around about 15 minutes, but then I worked on a couple of the projects some more. So for example, this project took 30 minutes, not including the drying time. Everything I've used, including the colours and the paper, are listed in the description. So click that show more button or the triangle if you're on mobile to see them. And I also want to do a quick shout out to Beverly as we were chatting about the Stabilo pencils, and that totally put me in the mood to use my Stabilo all pencil today. It's one of my favourites and I haven't used it for a while, so thank you Beverly. Okay, let's get into the questions. So thank you Elaine for these. The first question was about overthinking, which my regular viewers, you will all know that this is a topic that's close to my heart as I am a massive overthinker in both my everyday life and my art. Elaine wanted to know if I had any tips and tricks to help overcome overthinking, and you are watching one of them. I find working quickly on several pieces at once can help cut down on your overthinking time. So just, do a few pieces in say 10, 15 minutes, whatever you've got, and it really does help. You don't have to do it all the time. It doesn't have to become your work ethic unless you really want it to be. But it's a good exercise to practice from time to time. I think it helps you to get comfortable with letting go if you're an overthinker. And you kind of learn that good things can come from that. And that positive reinforcement helps you to build confidence in letting go more often and not overthinking things. The key is to remember that none of the pieces have to look good. You can mess up. It's not the end of the world. It does not matter. And you will always learn something from each piece that you do. I do have a step-by-step exercise video on my channel that revolves around shapes, and it's great as a warm-up and also for overcoming overthinking. So I'll link that up at the end and also in the description below in case you haven't seen it. Limiting your choices is also a very good way to decrease overthinking, and you'll often see me use a small colour palette when I do this type of exercise, like today for example. Or just use one mark making tool, or maybe limit yourself to one product but used in different ways. They're all things that you can play with. And you know what? The other thing I do if I find I am really overthinking something is walk away from it. Leave it to one side, perhaps near your work desk. Sometimes what needs to be done next kind of becomes clearer with a bit of distance. The next question was, do I decide what to draw before I open my journal? And the answer is yes, sometimes I do. I usually try to let you know if one of my pages is what I call it organic, where none of it was planned, or a planned page, or somewhere in between where some planning went into it and also some organic growth went into it too. I work to some fairly strict deadlines and I find planning is my best friend. And it totally applies to my art and, well, to everything really. But there is a downside for me, and that is burnout, and why I'm doing this piece today. If I've worked very long hours for over a week without a break, I burn out bad, but then who doesn't? And setting some time to do some pure organic, no pressure creating, even just for a short time, really helps. And I definitely don't plan the projects that I do in those sessions. And I don't even care if no actual projects that I can show come out of it. It just so happens that a couple of projects did come out of this session. So the next question was about prompt pages. Now, I'm not 100% sure what a prompt page is, so sorry if my next answer doesn't quite work. Shout if it's something completely different to this. But I don't tend to use prompts If by prompts you mean a word or a phrase picked at random or given in a list or any of those kind of forms, I have tried in the past, but it just doesn't seem to work for me. And if they're prompts that someone else has come up with, I find it even harder. Now, I've worked on design teams in the past, and many times we might be given a prompt or a theme to work from, and I find it's the quickest way to stamp out my organic creative side, even sometimes my planned creative side as well. But before my editors and clients start freaking out, not that any of you will be watching this, but just in case you are, I can work to briefs. And in fact, when I'm working with any of my craft or illustration clients, I much prefer a good brief so that I know where my client's expectations lie. And a good brief would be one where you've got a good idea of what the client needs from you, but it leaves you as the creative to bring your own unique spin to it and why they hired you in the first place. Hopefully, it doesn't always work out like that, but that's the ideal anyway. It's a different way of working, and I definitely use the organic side, but with a very healthy dose of the planning side for that kind of work. Now, I do use mood boards, and I love them. I use both physical and digital mood boards, and I suppose that's kind of like a prompt in a way. Anyway, I hope that answers your question. So my last question from Elaine, and this is totally my favourite, and that is it easier or more difficult to be inspired if you were doing it regularly for a business or YouTube like you do? Great question. Okay, how to answer this? I have an awful feeling that I could talk for hours on this, so I'll keep it brief. Yes. Okay, that's perhaps too brief. I do find it harder at times to keep inspired on my schedule, but as far as the videos are concerned, if I don't have them as part of my schedule, and they just wouldn't be regular or consistent, and I would probably not be doing the creativity that I do to make them, if that makes sense. But it isn't the creating that is the problem for me, as I've found that the more creative work I do, the more I can do, so creative work kind of just breeds creative work. Unfortunately, I only spend a really small amount of my time actually being creative. The rest of it is on the business side of it and everything else that's involved with getting projects out on time. So yeah, I do burn out. I mean, there's a lot of hard work that goes into working as a creative. It really isn't an easy option or cushy or any of those other misconceptions that people have about the creative industries. The trick is to find the middle ground where you can create and earn a living without compromising the bits that feed your creative energy. I am really still working on that, and if I ever make it, I will share how I did it with you. If you've already made it, then please do share how you did it. I know we could all do with that help. Give me a shout if you want to ask a question or discuss something further. I'm happy to go into it into more detail. And please do like the video, share it and subscribe. Everything you can do like that just helps enormously, so thank you. I will be back really soon as I have a quick surprise video coming up for you tomorrow. Okay, not so much of a surprise now. Oops.